What's up, everybody? This is Jason from Nefariant, and you're watching Heavy New York.
Heavy New York!
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at Duff's Alcohol Abuse Center in Brooklyn, and we are here with Jason Leckberg of the almighty Nefariant. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me here, man. I mean, I was kind of already here, but thank you for coming and bringing a camera and a microphone and some friends.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Shout out to our friend Max for letting us use his light in this
What up, Max?
dark-ass bar. But
Max is the best. Max actually, here's a fun behind the scenes. As Nefariant goes on, if you follow our Instagram, which you should, at Nefariant, you will see many, many photos of us hanging out at Duff's. And you heard it here first. They are not from us being here every week, because even though we are here every week, it's because Matt shot all these awesome photos, and they're all going to be on our Instagram. So
awesome. Definitely look forward to checking that out.
Max is a good friend.
Awesome. So you surprised us with this awesome 3-song EP, which features Victim, Life of Fire, and Preto. So what I'm curious is this like maybe a clear representation of what like the entirety of Nefariant is going to sound like, or do you think you're going to experiment a little bit more?
I mean, even with what we have written now that isn't yet out, this is not a full representation. Definitely not. We have songs that are lighter, and we also have songs that are, I don't know that I would necessarily say heavier, because Victim is a pretty heavy song, but definitely more adventurous. Mm-hmm. Let's use the word adventurous as far as like structure and timing and things like that.
Interesting. One thing I was curious about was the initial like idea for Nefariant, like combining what you learned in Ikillya, combining elements of Primeval and Grade 8, or were you guys trying to like maybe do something that you've never done in your previous projects before?
I honestly, I'd have to open that up for the other guys as well, for what they're, where they came from. I came from specifically a position of wanting to create a very specific type of band that was not something I had done before. I'm still me, so there's only there's still going to be some Ikillya in it, because like who I am is going to come through in that. But there was definitely a very specific idea to try and bring in, especially like a piano and those type of melodic elements to do something different from what I'd done in the past. I don't really know specifically about the guys whether or not they were trying to do something different, but it also definitely wasn't, let's put those three things together. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't think there's any Primeval in us, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, that's a very, very different band from the other stuff. Maybe some Grade 8, definitely a little Ikillya, but then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that is not in either of those.
Are you going into Nefariant with a completely different state of mind than what you were doing in Ikillya, or is maybe there like a similar method behind the madness that ties the two projects together?
That's a good question. I would say that that I don't think that I'm necessarily applying the same. Let me back it up. There are definitely things that are different about this. So one thing that I would say is different is that the production level of Nefariant is much higher than Ikillya was. Ikillya viewed ourselves as kind of like a punk band.
Very raw.
Yeah, with like metal instruments, and we were, obviously we didn't sound like punk, but we approached it from a very much like stripped down, Whereas Nefariant, the production level is much higher. We've got strings on all our stuff. Obviously, there's nobody playing strings in our band, so we're on a click, and we've got tracks that we play with now live, which is something Ikillya would have never done. So there's definitely a different approach from the production and from the overall kind of end result standpoint. But I wouldn't say that it's a different mindset of like how we're getting there, because we're still getting there in the same way, which is getting a bunch of dudes in a room, talking about things that we love, and figuring out how to make music together. Mm-hmm.
As a vocalist, have you always needed music to come up with lyrics, or can you sometimes have like a concept or a subject matter in mind, and maybe that could help determine the composition of the music itself?
I usually write without music.
Mm-hmm.
I usually just write free-form, what would be best described as poetry. Almost all my stuff is written without a song in mind. I just write when I'm inspired, and then we get in the room, and I have like all these sheets of paper of like lyrics, and then I have stuff on my phone, and as we're writing a new piece, as the band is jamming it, I pull out pieces and kind of like figure out which one speaks to me and feels like this will fit there, and then I end up adjusting what I wrote to fit the piece of music. And then sometimes I'll augment and I'll write more after that, but I rarely have a piece of music first and then write entirely for it. I always start from something else.
You ever worried you're going to have like the perfect set of lyrics ever and then see how they go like one syllable over the actual arrangements?
Oh, it happens all the time. It happens all the time, and it's probably the biggest thing that I fight with producers about in the studio is me trying to shoehorn in a lyric because it's how I wrote it and it's clever, and they go, it doesn't really sound right, and I'm like, no, it's so cool, and because I'm so stuck on the way I wrote the lyric. In fact, I can, of the Most Magnificent, off the second Ikillya record, Josh Wilbur and I had a big fight about that one. On this, was it this one? One of the songs, I don't know if it's one of the songs that's out now or is coming out, because we're in the middle of still recording a lot of stuff for Nefariant, so there's more stuff coming. Ryan Kelly and I had a good argument about that. It's the same thing. It's always me just out clevering myself and trying to write something that I'm like, this is cool, and everybody else is like, it's just not.
Can the lyrics be open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into what you're singing about and try to make them see things from your point of view in a way?
I definitely work to have a very specific point of view that I'm coming from, but I also don't need to spell it out in such an extent that people completely understand. In fact, very often my lyrics come from, because I write them before the music, they come from like something that happened to me or a feeling that I like dove into, an idea of like where something, I see something happening. Like, let's go back and use an old Ikillya one. So like, actually, no, let's use a new one. Let's use Victim, right? So Victim came from the idea of this person who feels victimized, who their life is defined by like something's constantly happening to them, and somebody else is always the bad person, and they're never willing to look inside themselves and find like what part they play in this and the value of the person that they don't understand. And so I started from that very specific idea, but I don't need to necessarily spell that out in the lyric. I can kind of like, I have a very specific viewpoint that I'm coming from, but I'm not opposed to somebody else reading it and bringing their own.
You mentioned you always write when you're inspired, and I always find that interesting. Does inspiration like come out of nowhere sometimes, or do you have to like put yourself in a certain element in order for ideas to come through?
I definitely, if there is a certain element that I can put myself in to have ideas come out, I haven't figured it out. And if I do figure that out, I will probably do that. I will probably do it to myself. But I find that a lot of my lyrics come from, I try to surround myself with other forms of art. I like to do that. I like to experience things that inspire me as an artist, not even necessarily music, but like pieces of art. So there's, for instance, on Netflix, there's a series called Abstract, and it's all about, it's like two seasons long, and it's all about these artists who are like, one guy like makes typefaces, and another one is an architect, and these different people, but they are like absolute amazing artists in their field. And so you watch that, and it's inspiring to see them talk about the passion they put into it and the detail that goes into it, and that's inspiring to me. So being inspired by other artists and not necessarily music helps me get in that place. And then also just experience. Like there are lines in this new stuff I remember very, very clearly where I wrote the line in Life on Fire, all this goddamn panic, isn't it romantic, all this goddamn panic. I wrote that line, and then also the line, so it's streetwalkers and death seekers, my muse and my inspiration. I was in the back of a Uber riding over the 59th Street Bridge, coming back from a strip club, really, really drunk. And I remember just looking out at like the water and the skyline of Manhattan going by me, and going into Queens and seeing Brooklyn down below it, and just this feeling of like, at that point in my life where my life was like on fire. It was like there was a whole bunch of shit going on, but I had this feeling at the same time of like, of love, of like reveling in that destruction and in that, and a lot of Nefariant is about that right now. This music that I'm writing is very much about like, there's a line in another song called Feral that's coming out, which is self-destruction is so seductive, because that's really the way I felt this last year. And so there was these moments where it was like everything is going wrong, but I am just like reveling in this idea that everything's wrong. Like, bring it on. This is horrible. I'm just going to go through it. And so that was this idea of just sitting there in this cab, watching the lights go by me, just being like, isn't it romantic? All this goddamn panic.
So you try to capture like a moment in your music to a degree, right?
Yeah.
So I always wanted to ask people this. When you're trying to capture a moment in a song, but sometimes you're working on a song for a couple hours, sometimes a couple days, sometimes a couple of weeks, could sometimes the longer you work on a song, like the moment kind of gets lost in a way?
Absolutely. And in fact, it's very difficult sometimes to recapture that moment, to have that early part of the lyric that I wrote that like I was in there and I was there, and then coming back to it 2 months later and going, how do I recreate that? How do I feel that again? That's a very, very difficult thing to do, and it's a difficult thing to stay in sometimes. But I also realize about myself that I can't force that.
Yeah.
I have to just let it flow, and it's going to be what it's going to be.
Definitely. And I have 2 more questions for you. Here comes the most difficult question in the whole interview.
I can't wait.
Every artist I ask this always stumbles on this one. How do you know when a song is done?
Oh, you don't. Absolutely don't.
I get that every time.
No question at all. My favorite quote about that is that art is not completed, it's abandoned.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get that.
And
that seems to be like the go-to like.
Yeah. Because it's right. You go into the process and you start creating, and you just kind of get to a place where you go, okay, the way I look at this, creating music, writing music, being in practice, being on stage, all of those moments when people get like super anxious and they're like, I gotta go perform now. My opinion is, it is time to be on stage. It is time to sing. It is time to write. And if I have not done the work that I needed to do prior to this moment to be amazing, then it's not getting fixed in the next 2 minutes. It's not getting fixed in the next hour of me sweating about it. So I'm going to go on stage, and I'm going to write a song right now. I'm going to be in the moment, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to be what it's going to be because it is the totality of what I'm able to bring to the table. And if it's not good, it's my fault for not having done the homework, but I'm not going to fix it now. So I love to just be in that moment and just go, this is what I've got. So when we're writing a song, this is what I've got. I put it out there, and I sing, and I write, and then we get to the end of it, and I go, that's what I had. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Fair enough, and I think that was a very good, articulate way of putting it.
Thank you.
Normally, it's always, oh, what the fuck?
Oh.
We almost made it through the whole interview.
I figured I'd wait for the last question.
Hey, everybody, Drew. Dustin's diving in.
No, I'm not Drew. I'm Dustin.
He isn't Drew. He's Dustin.
Yeah, same shit.
No.
No, I'm the one that called him Drew.
Yeah. See? That's what happens when you're at Duff's.
At Duff's with beers.
Oh, always somebody photobombing the interview. How's it going for you?
It's good. How are you? I'm just sitting here enjoying the interview you guys are doing.
Thank you.
My favorite part was when you were behind the camera, hip thrusting on it.
Yeah, that's an expensive tripod, man.
It's all right. I got you.
And the final question I wanted to ask you, feel free to dive in now that you're here. But a lot of people are going to be seeing Nefariant live for the first time soon. For you, is playing live a completely different art or a completely different energy than simply like being in songwriting mode, or is there maybe a similar like energy that you channel into both?
It is definitely a different headspace, but I really like focus on keeping the energy the same. Definitely keeping the energy, because I know I work with some artists who are like, oh, well, we're writing an album now, and now we've got to get ready to play live, and I don't like separating them. I like just being in it, and it's the same thing, and I'm performing for the other guys in the room when we're practicing too. I'm trying to bring my A game, and we used to have a thing in Ikillya, fuck ups equal push ups. So like
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, if it's, I view it the same way, What do you think, Dustin?
I would agree with you. I mean, I think we're all music fans, and that's why we do what we do. And a lot of what we write, I know, I can speak for myself. So it's like I write with the intent of how it would translate live, because that's what's important to me, because that's when people really absorb what we're doing and what we're trying to say, what we're trying to do, the vibe we're trying to create. So to answer your question, I think it's always being played live every time we do it. It's even recording, you're always trying to capture that live feel, right? Like that energy, or you're trying to capture that intent.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're always trying to play live, and every time we do it, it's with the same intensity and intent.
Awesome. And I'd imagine the fulfillment factor is the same too. You walk away feeling just as good when you had a good day in the studio as you did when you're on stage, right?
I'm gonna be real with you. I've never had a good day in the studio.
There are no good days. I mean, if it goes right, you're just like, all right, it went right.
Yeah.
But it's you don't walk away being like, yeah, we fucking scored on that one. You know what I mean? Like it's just everyone did what you're supposed to do. In a studio, you're in a fucking microscope. You know what I mean? So like, if you survive, it's like war. You come home from war. it's a success, I
Yeah.
guess. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But it doesn't mean it's good. It's just you went, you did what you had to do, and you lived to fight another day. And that's how I look at the recording studio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Damn.
100%.
That was like
100%.
one of the best analogies ever.
100%, because what happens is you're going in and you're giving it everything you have. You're laying yourself bare. You're putting out everything that you can do. And the best thing that you can take away from the studio is, how do I need to grow as an artist? Mm-hmm. Because this is, I mean, look, I love anybody that gives a damn about our music and wants to listen to it and appreciates us. Thank you. But the reality is, those people, Rib, those people they get to decide whether or not we get to turn what we're doing and this passion and this art into a financially supported thing. We don't have that choice. So the reason that we have to be in this every day, the reason we have to be doing this all the time, is because of that journey. It has to be us going, where do I get to next as an artist? How do I translate this idea and this feeling and this emotion that I have to tape? How do I get it out there? And every day it's like, how do I do it better than I did last time, because I don't think I got there. And at the point where you're not trying to progress, you've got to stop, because we have no control over whether or not it's going to be financially successful.
Yeah, and that's not why we're doing it either. It's just I feel like if you chasing that, you're kind of, because we're artists, number one, right? I know for me, if I don't show up and play guitar in Nefariant when I'm supposed to be doing it, I go fucking nuts. So for me, it's like a therapy session, and I'm not really someone you want off therapy. So that's where the artistry of it comes in, and the therapy of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
As Peter Steele said, you can't see it. There's a Type of Negative logo right above us here, but as Peter Steele said, sonic therapy.
There you go. There you go. And slow, deep, and hard.
And slow. He did say slow, deep, and hard also, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So before we,
He also said it'll do anything to make you come. So
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Which I co-signed that.
that was awesome. That was awesome. So before we go, I'd like to thank you all so much for your time today. Just the first Nefariant show in Brooklyn is March. Don't tell me. 21st.
Nope.
February 21st.
Nope.
Well-
March 21st, we're playing at Kingsland, supporting the mighty Propane, who we love.
Okay, that's
But
where I gotta mix.
February 28th
Okay.
is our first show, also at Kingsland. It's a headlining show. Some incredible bands: Lies Beneath, Solemn Vision, Final Siege, Rigor Samsa, which is basically 3/4 of Ikillya, with Dimitri from Hung singing. So it's going to be an awesome party.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, everybody.
Yeah.
We are here with Nefariant. New stuff coming very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.
Nefariant.